Alberta's United Conservative Party leadership race is heating up. Now, the party will be choosing its new leader to replace Premier Jason Kenney on October the 6th. One of those candidates vying for the Premier seat is Rebecca Schulz, who left her UCP cabinet post as Minister of Children's Services to enter the leadership race. Rebecca, welcome to Bridge City News.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. So what sparked your interest in running to become the new leader of the UCP and potentially the new Premier of Alberta?
You know, I just feel so strongly about the future of our province, and I know that the success of our United Conservative Party is key to the future of our province. I think that, as we travel across the province, and what I've been hearing from people is that there are a number of things going really well right now. Our economy is good. There are lots of jobs. Unemployment is down. But people also want to see a slightly different change in tone when it comes to the government, and they want to make sure that the government hears their voices, that they've got a voice at the decision-making table. And, I think we really need to stay focused on being hopeful and optimistic for our future, but also recognizing that people have some very real concerns right now, whether that be affordability or healthcare or education. And so, that's really the voice that I try to bring to the table. I want to be completely honest. I want to show humility, not just talk about it, admit when we've made some mistakes, and show Albertans that we're here to work for them, to listen to them, and that we hear, what's top of mind for them as well.
You just mentioned kind of why card-carrying members should vote for you, but what's one thing specifically that makes you stand out or different from all the other candidates in the field?
I would say it is my ability to communicate with people. I think we need somebody going into that next election who can, in fact, take on Rachel Notley and the NDP. That is our opponent as Conservatives. It's not each other, even though we've been through a very difficult couple of years. I think people want to see that shift in tone. I chose Alberta. I'm originally from Saskatchewan. And so when people say 4 years of an NDP government was really hard here in Alberta, I say try 16. Any room I go into across Alberta, there are a number of people who came from another province or another place. And generally speaking, they came to Alberta for opportunity, for that promise that if you can work hard, you can be whoever and whatever you want to be and chart your own path. And I think people are looking for that optimism, that different tone, that ability to resonate with people right across the political spectrum. As Conservatives, I would say we always talk about the center right, but show people that we can be a conservative government that also just uses good old common sense and, of course, compassion when we make decisions.
Now, Rebecca, the UCP says it's a big tent party, but it appears to be a little fractured right now in that tent with a lot of animosity. What will it take to really unite the Conservatives once again here in Alberta?
That's a really good question, and it's one I get a lot. It starts with our team. We have an amazing team of MLAs right across this province that are hardworking and smart and dedicated, and I know that they want to be united. And like many party members, I would say there were times where they felt like their voice just wasn't heard at the table. And I would say when talking about my team, I spent a couple of days last week with your MLA, who is a strong voice for Lethbridge. At the table, absolutely no question, Emily Newdorf. But, it's for me, it's building on the talents and strengths of the team. It's not about any one person. And so making sure that our team feels heard is priority number one. My other commitment was to travel to every single one of the 87 constituencies, knock on doors in every single riding, make sure that I'm meeting with every single CA board president and the volunteers to make sure that our grassroots party members know that in me, they will have somebody who will always listen and hear their concerns, hear where they're coming from. And I don't think that people expect to agree with every decision a government is going to make. Largely, the concerns sometimes are around how decisions have been made and how they're communicated. And so that's really the approach that I'm going to take.
Yeah, because some MLAs said, you know what, we're forced always to toe the party line. Our voices are not being heard. So how would you approach that problem and that issue as Premier of Alberta?
Yep. And, again, it does start with bringing our team together. And yes, we are a party. It's a party system. And I think there is always that question of, we are the party of different opinions. We value things like freedom of speech and diversity of thoughts and ideas. We want people to hold the values that they hold dear, and we respect those differences. That's, sometimes I joke that that's what makes conservative politics a little bit messy, but it's also one of the things that we need to continue to hold as one of our most important values. That said, we still have to show discipline. And so the question is, where do we have those discussions? How as a team can we come together and say, look, we are always going to value different opinions and different thoughts and different perspectives, but what, as a team, does discipline look like to us? And make sure that, we come to that as a team and know what is that line that we're not going to cross, and what's going to happen if that line is in fact crossed. And I think, largely speaking, people want to see that there's one set of rules for everybody. They don't want me to come and tell everybody what to do. That's not my approach. I'm not a top-down approach to leadership kind of person. But I think our team really does have to have that conversation around, what does discipline look like? Because we're going to need it as we head into the next election. How do we stay on message, on track, and still make sure everybody's voices are heard?
We don't know exactly what lies ahead with any future COVID-19 outbreaks, but everyone seems to have a different opinion on how this should really be handled. Are you in favor of vaccine mandates or lockdowns? Or are you the mindset that we should not see any more lockdowns in our province, which has really hurt small business owners?
I would say this. Throughout the pandemic, and I mean, those sitting on the sidelines, or even those of us looking back now, hindsight is 2020, we learned a lot of things. We were faced with something that none of us ever could have expected, and none of us had ever been through before. And I would say this, throughout especially the last couple of months of the pandemic, but with the various waves, and we saw obviously things changing from one wave to the next, we know a lot more now. We know that we have to address issues within our hospital system. We have to address capacity needs when it comes to the healthcare system. We've heard loud and clear, people want freedom of choice and autonomy over the decisions that they make. And I often, again, say we've spent, 2 years going through something very hard. We have been through something that has been so divisive, and I believe we should respect where people are coming from and focus on also the overall well-being and mental health of people. I mean, especially of kids. That's what I was working in before resigning to jump into this race. But we saw that the health restrictions had a very real impact, especially on kids and youth, but really Albertans right across the province. And, I think Albertans are looking for us to say, you know what, we hear you. We know that has had a significant impact, and we need to look at the issues around the healthcare system and hospital capacity to address future waves.
Now, you want to put in place what you refer to as affordability actions. The first one is the Alberta Activity Grant. What is this really all about?
That actually came out of the Child and Youth Wellbeing Review. We heard, again, health restrictions had an impact on kids and families. We need to prioritize the mental health and well-being of Albertans, especially of young kids, and help them get back into activities. I mean, whether that be piano or hockey or soccer or dance, things that kids are passionate about at a time where parents are really struggling with affordability. I mean, I think of when I was growing up, I had amazing parents and a wonderful family, but I remember my parents making those really tough decisions. And I know there are parents who lay awake at night thinking about how they are going to pay their electricity bills and put gas in their car, and also help get their kids in things that they can be passionate about, and that will improve their overall well-being and mental health. So, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we can control. We don't control financial, federal monetary policy, but we do control what we can do with this surplus and direct it in a way that goes directly to parents and kids, supports the choices they make. I believe in parent choice. And so as opposed to necessarily funding one program or the other, I think those dollars should go to parents to help them out with their kids and their families. And also on the details of what exactly that looks like, I said, that's something I want to take to caucus too. It's not all about me and my ideas. I want my colleagues to weigh in on exactly how we're going to do that. But I think affordability, and it's not just, I think that's the number one thing I hear right across the province. Mental health and well-being, that's important too. So that was one of our first commitments as well.
Now, you've also proposed to implement an Alberta small business tax holiday. How would that work?
Well, and that's been raised by a number of organizations. I know our business tax is low, but we also have to recognize that the last 2 years have been really hard on small businesses throughout the pandemic. I know that there's been a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of small business owners have said, look, my business really struggled over the last 2 years. I absolutely believe that these entrepreneurs are at the heart of the entrepreneurial spirit that we all talk about. These are folks that drive our economy. They hire people in our local communities right across the province. And I think starting with the 2% small business tax holiday is an excellent way to show them, first, that they're valued, second, that we completely understand what they've been through in the last couple of years, but third, that they are absolutely vital to our province's economic growth and recovery.
Rebecca, let's chat about healthcare for just a moment here. What really needs to be done to change and increase physician availability, decrease wait times, and increase hospital bed capacity? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and the family doc situation is something I did hear a lot about in Lethbridge. I know the Minister of Health, Minister Copping, has been working really hard on that as well, just to attract new doctors. And I know your MLA Newdorf, has raised that as well and was able to update a number of people on the number of doctors that are now signing contracts and coming to Lethbridge specifically. But this is an issue that we hear right across the province. We need to make sure, that we have access to family doctors either in or near your local community. And I grew up in super small town Saskatchewan, and so I know the struggles that people face in rural communities, and especially when it comes to access to healthcare. Primary care has to be a priority in terms of how we recruit physicians, coming up with innovative and unique ways to get more young people from rural communities getting into med school and coming back and serving as a family doc in their local community. I think there is a lot that can be done there, and working with different areas across the province, because the needs in Lethbridge may not be the same as in Bonnyville, for example, right? So we have a really good opportunity ahead of us to work with those communities and get more family docs in the system. I think that a lot of our answers, we obviously know that we've got a Ernst & Young report that identified a lot of kind of the red tape within the system. We know that we invest more than other provinces per capita, but yet we don't have better outcomes. I don't think we need more reports. I think, honestly, the answer lies with our frontline healthcare professionals. Doctors, nurses have identified not just middle management, but layers of bureaucracy and simple changes that could be made within the healthcare system to really focus on allowing frontline workers to do what they do best and really transform the thinking in our healthcare system around having the patient at the heart of it and not a process or policy.
Now, what about education? There's pressure from the teachers' union to change their curriculum, to decrease class sizes, to put less money into private schools, maybe even homeschooling. Which direction do you want to see our education system go?
Oh, that's a great question. I care a lot about education. I really do. My kids are 7 and 4. And I think right across this province, people want to make sure that we have a world-class education system for our kids. I believe in parent choice. I believe that, parents can make that best decision for them in terms of the type of education that works best for their child and for their family. And we need to maintain that. We have a long history in that front, no question. That said, I think curriculum, yes, there are a few things we've got great feedback on. English, math, financial literacy, those are all really great things, that we get a lot of positive feedback on. Continue moving in that path. There are some areas, though, where we missed the mark, and we need to rebuild some trust in that process and get some feedback and show parents and teachers across the province that we're listening, we've heard them, and that is definitely going to be a priority of mine. I also feel, one of the things I hear a lot is around class sizes, as you mentioned, and having teachers and kids in the classroom at the heart of the decisions we make and the funding decisions that are made. And we hear a lot about the government saying that school divisions have local authority and school divisions saying government hasn't given us enough funding. I am a problem solver, first and foremost, creative problem solver. And I think we need to get to the table and look at, where's the money going? I mean, I'm from Calgary, as you mentioned, and we have a school division that had a report that identified if we funded school divisions like others, or if the school division ran like some of the other major divisions, that we would have far lower class sizes. So my question is, how can we make sure that we're focusing on kids and teachers in the classroom? I made a commitment that I want to make sure we have more EAs hired. Absolutely. I think that helps with teachers, right? It helps bring down the stress level. It gives them some support in the classroom. It's good for kids, whether kids, that are struggling with mental health or struggling in class, or have unique or challenging needs. We need to make sure that those supports are there. And I also do want to pilot some very true wraparound services to address the mental health needs that really respects that schools are the hubs of a community. And for really vulnerable kids and families, that's going to be where they need to get those supports.
Rebecca Schulz is a candidate in the UCP leadership race. The party will be choosing its new leader on October the 6th. Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me anytime.